The President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. Court officer is now instructed to call witness TCW 583 into the courtroom. The President, court officer, could you please move the console a little bit further to the left or the right so that witness may see the red light when the mic is activated. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. Today you are here before us to give testimonies. And before we proceed to the session, the Chamber would like to give some instructions to you concerning how you respond to questions. And at the court here, as you may be familiar, we use 3 languages: English, Khmer, and French. Your statement will always be rendered into another or 2 other languages. So when you address any question, you are supposed to pause a little bit in order for the interpreters to render your statement fully. The Chamber has already worked with the technicians, and that you are not supposed to press any button. You only need to respond to the question when you see the red light is on the mic. So please be mindful that do not respond to any question yet if you haven't seen the red light. Before we proceed to the substantive questions, the Chamber would like to ask a few questions concerning your background. What is your name? Response. Good afternoon, Mr. President and Your Honors. My name is So Kum Lamut. Should I also proceed to my birthday? I was born in 1931 in Chuk District, Kampot Province. The President, thank you. Do you use any other names other than So Kum Lamut? In particular, during the revolution time between 1970 to 1975 and 1979. Response. I also have another name. They called me. The President, thank you. Where do you live? Response, I live at house number 42 at Sadamko, Tulkok. Question, what is your father's name? Response, he is Rod Sokun. Question, what is your mother's name? Response, she is Nyok Sokun. Question, what is your wife's name? Response, she is Uk Samala. Question, how many children do you have? Response, I have 4 children. The President, thank you. Mr. Sorkum Lamut, according to the report of the greffier of the trial chamber, you are not related to any parties to the proceedings, including the civil parties and the 3 accused persons in this case. Is the report correct? Response, yes it is, Your Honours. The President, the greffier has already indicated that you have taken an oath within this court, the oath you took on the 21st of May 2012. Is that true? Response, yes it is. The President, thank you. Now the Chamber would like to inform you your rights and duties before this Chamber. As a witness before this Chamber, you can refuse to respond to any questions that are self-incriminating. You have the right not to incriminate yourself. And at the same time, the Chamber would like to also inform you of your obligation. As a witness, you shall respond to all questions put by the parties, except responding to the questions that are believed to be self-incriminating. As a witness, you shall only talk about the truth, nothing but the truth. You shall tell the court, based on your experience, what you have witnessed, what you saw. Do you understand this? Response, yes, I do. The President, thank you. Next, the Chamber would like to hand over to the prosecutors to put questions to the witness before other parties. Mr. Wayne Hort. Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honours, and my learned colleagues and parties to the proceeding. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness and people in the public gallery. I may introduce myself. I am Wayne Hort from the Office of Co-Prosecutor. Do you hear me? Response, yes, I do. I have a few questions to put to you. The first question concerns the local structure of the CPK and the process how people were inducted into the party. How did you come to know the Khmer Rouge movement? Rather, when did you come to know the Khmer Rouge movement? Response: I don't remember the exact date, but it is sometime during the Sangkum Riet Niyom regime. Question: how were you introduced into the Khmer Rouge movement? Response: I was introduced to the movement through my friends. We would gather in some meetings before we joined the movement. Question: were you introduced into the movement in the public, or were you told this information secretly? Response: I was told about this secretly. Question: when you were introduced secretly into the movement, had you ever been called to the meeting? My apologies, Mr. President, says the witness. Indeed, we had some meetings with our acquaintance, and meeting could be convened. Question: where were the meetings convened? Response: I remember that the meetings were held at somebody's home. It would be rotated, and I don't remember the date. Response: I don't remember the people's name, but again, there were meetings, and people in the meeting would convince us to join the movement. I don't remember the detail of the names of those people. Question: were you ever told the reason to join the revolution? Response: I was told that there was problem in the society, and that people were needed to help improve the society, to eradicate corruption, for example. Question: during your early time when you joined the revolution, were you ever advised or asked to prepare your biography? Response: No, I was not. Question: I may go back a little bit. When you said you attended meetings, were the self-criticism sessions already convened back then? Response: At the beginning, I think there were no such self-criticism sessions. I'm not quite sure, but such criticism session was not in existence yet. Question: I would move closer to this. In the situation when you joined the revolution at the beginning, what contribution had you made to the revolution? First, says the witness, I did not contribute much to the revolution. Question: Could you tell the court until which year that you began to contribute financially to the movement of the revolution? Response: In 1950s, when I had some work to do at various places, for example, at the train station and at the bank, I could manage to contribute some money to the movement. Question: When did you start working at the bank? Response: It was in 1993 or 1994. Before that, I worked at the train station, and I also had worked as a professor before I became the train station worker or staffer. Question: What position did you hold at the bank? Response: At the beginning, after some 6 months of training, I was appointed the head of the branch of the bank in Sihanoukville. Later on, I was sent to be trained in France for a few months at a bank in France. When I returned, I worked as the head of the credit unit, the unit where loan could be offered to people.
Question: When you became the head of credit unit, who was your immediate supervisor? Immediately above me was Mr. Chow Sao. He was sent from the National Bank of Cambodia. Question: When you were working as the head of credit unit, were you authorized to allocate loans to other individuals? Response. Credit unit was tasked to analyze the supporting documents and application for loan, and then we refer to the supervisor to approve. I did not have the approval authority as to what loan could be made to others. We simply forward the proposal to the upper authority. Question. You said that you had contributed some fund to the Khmer Rouge resistance forces, and I would like to know whether or not you had contributed to any individuals who may eventually supported the underground forces at that time. Did you know anyone who was from the Khmer Rouge forces that you have facilitated the loan or financing for them? No, there was none of them. Thank you. The President. National Co-Prosecutor should be more focused when you put the question, making sure that the question is relevant to the alleged facts in the relevant portion of the closing order. If the question deviates from the alleged facts in the closing order, it may not be conducive and to the proceeding. Of course, at this stage of the proceedings, the historical backgrounds of the Khmer Rouge and Democratic Cambodia was useful. The period that happened before 17 April 1975, because it concerned with the historical background of the Communist Party of Cambodia. And the most relevant facts under the jurisdiction of the ECCC was the temporal jurisdiction of the ECCC from the 17th of April 1975 to the 6th of January 1979, and this was clearly indicated in the severance order, and we are now dealing with case 002/01, and we have already set the parameters for the discussion of those relevant facts. So please be advised that the question should be more focused and relevant to the alleged facts in the closing order. Otherwise, we will intervene and interrupt the testimony of the witness, and we from time to time will instruct the witness not to answer to the question in order to ensure that we are making the most use of the court time. The President. Prosecutor, please activate your mic. Prosecutor. Now I would like to focus on the administrative aspect. Did you ever hear about liberated zones? Response. Yes, I did. Question. What was the administrative structure like in those liberated zones? The President. Court officer is now instructed to arrange the microphone before the witness. Make sure that the microphone is put right in front of him. However, the console itself should be turned aside so that he can see the red light before he answers the question. Co-prosecutor may continue now. Prosecutor, concerning the means of communication in the Khmer Rouge resistance forces, you said that there was an underground communication line. So did they use, what form of communication did they mobilize? Did they use messenger, for example? Respond. I find it a bit difficult to answer to this question. I do not know whether or not you wanted to ask me about the resistance forces communication line, or you were asking me about my communication line back in my office. When you talk about underground forces, was it concerned with the period with which I worked at the bank? Prosecutor, I would like to ask about the Khmer Rouge resistance forces, because I would like to know whether or not at that time the Khmer Rouge had messenger who routinely communicated with you. No, the system of messenger did not exist yet at that time. Question. Now I turn to the roles of the Khmer Rouge leaders. Did you know the name? Did you know Khieu Samphan, Pol Pot, Ieng Sari, and Nuon Chea and their revolutionary names? Response. I knew them, but I cannot confirm that what I heard was correct, because there was introduction by others at that time, but there was no formal introduction as to what formal name Khieu Samphan bore at that time. And in addition, in that movement, I was not within the leadership rank, so my task was at a lower level. The other important task was handled by those who were in the upper structure, but the names of those three individuals were heard. But later on, even in the international arena, their names were also mentioned. I once again cannot confirm that that was correct. Question. So, how did you hear about their names? There was nothing specific about what I heard about their names. Question. Leaders, Pol Pot, Khieu Samphan, Ieng Sari, and Nuon Chea, when they held meetings in 1975, did you ever attend meeting with them? Response. No, I never attended any meeting with them. Now I would like to move on to the administrative issue and logistic affairs. Did you ever hear the word office before 1975? Response. No, I never heard of it. Question. Did you ever hear about a code number, a secret code number, 870? No, I never heard of it. Question, how about Office 71? Response, I did not hear about it either. Question, now I move on to the general policy of the democratic Cambodia before 1975. Did you ever hear the word absolute revolutionary? Response, no, I never heard of it. How about the word Sritan? Did you hear about it? Response, I heard this word Sritans, but it was when the Khmer Rouge came to power. Question, so what was it referred to when they said Sritan? Response, Sritans is referred to the production yield. We had to accomplish 3 tons per hectare. Thank you. Did you know 100 before 1975? 100. Response, yes, I did.
100 នេះគាត់មាន
What sort of activities did 100 do with the Lonal administration? During Lonal regime, he was a banker. He worked in one of the state-owned bank. But before the Khmer Rouge came to power, he left. He took refuge in the forest. Question, did you know the reason why he fled? Response, I did not know the reason back then, but later on I learned that at that time, Lonal officers wanted him, but I did not know the detailed reason, but after that I did not see him anymore. I stay on this topic on general policy. They mentioned the enemy of the revolution. Who were those enemies referred to? Were they the Lonal officer and administrators? Response, I could not provide a clear-cut answer to that because at that time they only mentioned Lonal, but I don't know what they specifically refer to. I don't know whether or not they targeted individuals or they refer to, for example, Lonal soldiers or individuals working in the administration of Lonal. Question, Lonal officers were against the Khmer Rouge forces. Is that correct? It's a bit challenging answering that question Of course, I think it's that they were against the Khmer Rouge forces because they were fighting against each other, so they must have some contradiction. But as for the detail of or the depths of the matters, I cannot speculate. So by contradicting against the other party, we mean that they were considered the enemy of the revolution. Is that correct? I cannot really define the term clearly. But when the Khmer Rouge came to power, those who were against the regime were considered the enemies of the revolution. So Lonol soldiers and officers were being considered enemy because they were against the regime. Question. So back then, those who were considered dissidents, were they confined to Lonol soldiers or any other groups? A response. I cannot explain on that issue. Question. How about the exploiting power or authority? Did you ever hear of the term? Response. Yes, I did. During the Democratic Cambodia period, exploiting authority, what was it like? Exploiting power refer to the predecessor regimes which exploited the people. Question. You said it referred to the previous regime. Did they refer to the civil servant in the Lonol administration? Can you elaborate on it? Response. I cannot explain it clearly because the leaders had their own political perception and I did not know what their political line or perception was. Question. I have another question on this subject matter. Did you ever hear the word contemptible traitor? Response. Yes, I did. The so-called contemptible traitor, did they refer to any particular group of people? A response. I cannot answer that question. Question. You said just now that you had heard of the word contemptible traitors. How did you learn about these words? Response. I cannot recollect because the event took place over 30 years ago. I cannot recall who said what exactly at that time.
ខ្ញុំសួរតាក់ទងនឹងគោល
I stay on this topic again. Did you ever hear about outside the rank and inside the rank? Response: I never heard of it before.
អរគុណលោក
Thank you. So now I move on to the next topic on educational policy on the party ideology. When you first joined the Communist Party of Cambodia, were you indoctrinated? If so, what did they indoctrinate you? They at that time indoctrinated the Marx-Lenin ideology. Question: did they provide you any materials, hard copy materials for you to read and comprehend it, or did they simply give a talk about that subject matter? Response: it was an oral presentation or lecture. We never received hard copy materials.
ពេលនោះមេដឹកនាំ
Question: who was the trainer? Response: I cannot recall his name.
តាក់ទងនឹងការអប់
In relation to education, did you ever hear about the revolutionary flag or revolutionary youth magazines? Respond: no, I never heard of them. I would like to ask you one more question about the fundamental rights of the citizen. Did you ever hear the word elimination of private property and ownership? Were you ever trained or introduced any policy of eliminating private ownership? Respond: no, I never heard of it.
ចុះពាក្យមួយទៀត
Question: how about another word, the word which says we did not agitate the private ownership? Before 1975, I did not hear about that term, but after 1975, I did hear it.
តើលោកអាចបញ្យល់បានទេថាទ្រព្យសម្បត្តិส่วนตัว
Can you explain the word individual ownership? Can you explain what it was referred to? Was it referred to private ownership such as the ownership of cattle, television sets, bicycle or so? A response: yes, you are correct. Private ownership refers to those items, the items that belong to individual persons.
តាក់ទងនឹងសិទ្ធិរបស់ពលរដ្ឋ
Concerning this same topic of fundamental rights as citizen, did Angka instruct that people set aside their own properties and put it in a collective use? Response: there was no such a formal instruction, but in practice we did see that farmers who had their own properties, for example cattle, buffaloes, then they would give it to the collectives in order to use it as common properties.
ការចូលបដិវត្តដំបូងបដិវត្តមានណែនាំថាយើងត្រូវតែស្មោះត្រង់សូម្បីតែម្ទេសមួយផ្លែក៏ត្រូវសុំប្រជាជនដែរតើលោកได้ឮពាក្យហ្នឹងទេ
When you first joined the revolution, did you receive any instruction that you must be honest to the people, you must not steal not even a single chili from the people? Response: at first I did not hear such instruction because at that time we were considered intellectuals, so they never bothered to advise or instruct us on small minor issue like chili and stuff like that. But later on I heard about such instruction, but once again I was among the intellectuals, so there was no such instruction or advice. Question: did you hear about the children brigade?
Response: I indeed used to hear about that, and these units exist. Question: what were these children asked to do? Response: I can only talk in my capacity that I was engaged in the cooperative I worked in. A group of children would be put to work, but I don't know whether it happened elsewhere. Question: I would like to seek your clarification. The children mobile units were meant to put children to work. Is that correct? Response: I think that's the actual meaning of it, but everyone had to work. But the children would be put together separately from the adults. Young kids would be allowed to come and stay with their parents at night, but during the daytimes they had to go to work altogether. Question: my next question is about the military and the fundamental rights of the people. Have you ever heard that the soldier ever got injured or wounded? Response: with regard to the army, I do not think I have anything to do with this, and I have no knowledge about it, but I can say that the army engaged in fighting, and in such fighting I believe there could have been some injured people. Question: do you know anything about the marriage arrangement? For example, when women were made to marry the injured soldiers? Response: No, I do not know anything about this. Question. What about the marriage during the Khmer Rouge regime? Can you tell us what you witnessed about the marriage? Response. Apart from the small cooperative I was in, I would not be able to tell you about others. Question. I would like now to proceed to another question concerning religion. The President interrupts. Mr. Co-Prosecutor, you may pause now because it is now appropriate time for today's adjournment. The chamber will adjourn and the next session will be resumed tomorrow at 9 a.m. Parties and the public should be informed that the chamber continues hearing the testimonies of Mr. Saw Kum Lamut. The questions continue to be put by the prosecutor. Mr. Saw Kum Lamut, we have just begun to hear your testimonies and they are not yet finished. So you are invited to come to the court again at 9 a.m. to give further testimonies. And duty counsel for Mr. Sakum Lamut is also invited to come to the courtroom tomorrow to assist him during the course of his testimony. Court officer is now instructed to coordinate with the Wesu unit to ensure that Mr. Sakum Lamut can be returned to his place and that he can be returned to the courtroom by 9 a.m. tomorrow for testimonies. Security personnel are now instructed to bring all the 3 accused persons to the detention facility and have them returned to the courtroom before 9 a.m. In the case of Mr. Ieng Sari, if he still shows his clear position that he would like to be excused from the courtroom and ask that he be allowed to observe the proceedings from his holding cell through his waiver in writing before the commencement of tomorrow's session, the chamber will allow him to only be brought to his holding cell where the AV audio equipment are linked so that he can observe proceedings from the cell. The court is adjourned.